Each month, there are a ton of new video game releases that we always keep our eyes on as gamers. Unfortunately, very few new releases ever live up to the hype, and many of us end up in this never-ending cycle of what to buy. Doc here today, and today I'm going to be showing you the top 10 games you should have bought that came out last month. Starting off at number 10 is Coral Island. This one is being worked on by a brand new development team out of Indonesia, Stairway Games, and is another recent publishing for Humble Games. Coral Island is a single-player, casual life and farming simulation game. It shares many similarities to games such as Stardew Valley, My Time at Sandrock, Animal Crossing, and things of similar nature. In similar fashion to these titles, you start off by customizing your character and are brought to a smaller paradise-like island where you meet local tradespeople that you will need to familiarize yourself with to be able to improve your plot of land on the island over time. Throughout the journey on Coral Island, you will trade and interact with locals, partake in island festivities, explore remote sections of the island, and constantly seek to improve your farming abilities. I have to state that Coral Island is in early access, so there may be bugs here and there, as well as some portions of the game that are not entirely finished. With that being said though, the Stairway Games team has already released a full itinerary for their planned patches and content release schedule. Some of the things mentioned in their rollout plan include the ability to get married, have kids, deep expansions to parts of the island, additional festivals and island events, consistent quality of life updates, and even a full multiplayer mode with mod support a bit further down the road. Some people tend to be wary of early access, but I always think it's good to support small dev teams that push out quality content from day one, especially when you get games that are not insanely overpriced. And with this one, it looks like you'll get about 25 hours of content if you speed your way through, which isn't too bad in my opinion. Coral Island is available on Microsoft Game Pass for PC, or you can get your own copy for $25 today on Steam. At number 9, Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. One of the bigger anticipated releases from this past October is a 4v1 competitive multiplayer horror experience. This was developed and published by IllFonic, whose past few projects were met with mixed reviews and didn't land where they wanted in terms of overall popularity. However, with Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, it seems like they may have found their way this go-around. As you would imagine, in Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, you play as one of the 4 Ghostbusters where you work together with your fellow teammates to defeat a ghost-infested area. The cool thing about this one is the ghost is an actual human-controlled player, very similar to the likes of Friday the 13th or Dead by Daylight, although much less terrifying in my opinion. The goal of each game is quite simple but done pretty well. As a ghost, you have one goal: completely haunt the selected area before the Ghostbusters can stop you, and as part of the Ghostbusters team, your goal is to destroy 3 ghost rifts on the map while also capturing the ghost before the hunt is completed. Now, critics have not been shy in giving mixed opinions so far. However, the game does play bug-free, it's had various issues upon launch, and seems to be widely enjoyed by its player base early on, which in my opinion is always a great sign. The biggest complaint facing this one is the lack of overall diversity on multiplayer content. Currently, the game sits with just 5 maps, which isn't the absolute worst. However, there is only one game mode at the time for all 5 maps, which is where I believe some of the burnout from critics is coming from. It does beg the question if a $40 price tag justifies it in its current state, but IllFonic has already announced that they have a handful of DLC content, including new ghosts and maps, on its way for free, which is always a huge plus. If they continue to release free DLC as promised, I think this one is definitely worth picking up. It's available on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC on the Epic Games Store. Number 8, Signalis. Signalis is a single-player sci-fi themed survival horror game featuring a pixel-style design. It was developed by Rose Engine, a 2-person development team based out of Hamburg, Germany, and co-published by both Humble Games and Playism. Signalis takes place in a distant future where space travel is prominent and a totalitarian government entity known as the Nation runs supreme. In search of your partner following a space shuttle crash, you fight through terrifying enemies via third-person mechanics, solve unique puzzles, and make consequential decisions via inventory management. Signalis has seen a huge spike in player count since its first few days, and I think this is one that did get lost in the conversation as a result of many big name releases in October. It released right around the same time as Modern Warfare 2, and I think that might have taken a dip into its player count early on. It is worth noting that this is a game that predicates on both horror and inventory management, so if those 2 elements stress you out, just be mindful of this before purchasing. At approximately 7.5 hours runtime, it is a bit on the shorter side, but I believe this is mitigated by the $20 price tag. Even with the lower price tag, if this shorter length is a deterrent for you, I do highly recommend wishlisting this at the minimum for one of the upcoming seasonal sales where you can find Signalis on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, and PC on Steam, Game Pass PC, and the Humble Games collection. At number 7 is The Case of the Golden Idol, a single-player detective murder mystery game featuring a retro graphic art style. In what appears to be the first work by developer Color Gray Games and published by PlayStack, The Case of the Golden Idol is set in the 18th century where you play as a detective looking to uncover the mystery surrounding 12 deaths that seem to share a commonality. Using point-and-click mechanics to uncover clues, piece together puzzles, and engage in suspect dialogue, you'll be tasked to solve the case of the Golden Idol. Similar to Signalis in length, this is another shorter game with an average campaign completion time of around 6 hours. You'll get through it fairly quickly if you are the next Sherlock Holmes, of course. But nonetheless, this game is receiving insanely high reception at this time, and while it might be more likely to end up in the library of those who are into mystery and detective games, if you did happen to play and enjoy the return of Ombre Din in the past, you'll find yourself right at home with this one. The Case of the Golden Idol is out on PC on Steam for $18. Number 6. Cultic. Heavily inspired by Blood, a 1997 FPS cult classic, Cultic is a retro-looking single-player action first-person shooter developed by Jazz's Games. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correct. It might be Jace's Games. I just know that the developer's name is Jason. And for the record, the publisher behind this one, 3D Realms, is the same team who developed Ghost Runner, a first-person Souls-like platformer, which was easily my favorite indie game of 2020. Definitely keep an eye out for 3D Realms in the future. In Cultic, you play as a detective who's been shoved off the case, investigating a rumored deadly cult. Following the dismissal from the case, the detective decides to take matters into their own hands, setting the base premise of this game. Your mission is simple: take out the cult by all means necessary. Equipped with a variety of classic FPS weapons, you take on an intimidating set of cult NPCs, utilizing things like shotguns, dynamite, Molotov cocktails, grenade launchers, axes, and so forth. The graphical combat, while retro, does allow for some very satisfying moments that make the different weapons feel pretty heavy in their own unique ways. Now, some might be turned off by the brownish color palette that Cultic offers, but the developer here did a great job of contrasting colors in all the right ways without creating any sort of visual impairment to enemies. Additionally, many players are raving about Cultic's soundtrack, and if you're asking me personally, just the trailer music alone gets me in the mood to kill some psycho cult members. Have a quick listen. Those who do choose to pick up a copy won't find a massive hole in their wallet, as you can pick up Cultic for just $10, available for PC on Steam. At number 5 is Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which is an action-adventure turn-based strategy game for the Nintendo Switch. This is the second installment in the series, the first being Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which was released back in 2017. If you are unfamiliar with this series, Rabbids are in fact the Raving Rabbids from Ubisoft's Rayman series. It's an exclusive crossover deal that Nintendo and Ubisoft have with one another, and it does make me ponder, will we ever find ourselves with Assassin's Creed coming into Smash Bros? Probably not. Maybe wishful thinking. Now, the game takes place some undisclosed time after the first installment, and from what I understand, it's not vital that you need to know what happened in the first game to play the second, so I don't think you can't play this one without playing the first. In essence, you play as a combination of Mario and Rabbid characters to stop an intergalactic threat known as Cursa. Along your journey, you stop from world to world, saving these creatures known as Sparks, who will, in hope, help you defeat Cursa. The gameplay is similar to the first game, but actually eliminates some of the original weaknesses and continues to improve its strengths. Players build out a roster to use in battle consisting of both Mario and Rabbid-based characters. While still featuring turn-based combat, there is no longer a grid dictating character movements. A more freeing, turn-based movement mechanic has been overhauled on top of the original, and so far it's been met with positive feedback. Additionally, there are several different worlds to play on, all with their own unique challenges to traverse and battle on. As a result, this keeps the gameplay loop fresh from start to finish. The only downside with this one is that $60 price tag Nintendo loves to put on their new games. Never a huge fan of that, but it is something I've grown accustomed to experiencing when I see these new Nintendo releases. Regardless of that price, this is one I will still definitely be looking to get my hands on for the Nintendo Switch. At number 4 is a game that I imagine was almost on nobody's radar, at least it wasn't for me, and that's ASTLIBRA Revision, a single-player 2D action RPG side-scroller developed by Kaizo and published by Whisper Games. Now, according to my research, this is one of the highest rated games on Steam, coming out of October and heading into November, so I had to dig in here and see why. Taking inspiration from the Metroidvania genre, this game is featured around the main protagonist Karen, or I think it's Karen, one of those two. But additionally, he's accompanied by his talking bird companion, who together face the challenges of time travel and the mysteries that come along with it. The core principle of the game is to level up your character by defeating enemies, gaining XP, learning new abilities, acquiring new equipment, and taking on powerful endgame bosses. As with many RPGs, you also get to determine your playstyle, as the game allows for several different combat styles to learn and master, which allows for a ton of replayability. It turns out the developer is one guy who spent the last 14 years creating this game, with over a year spent in revision prior to its release. So to me, that's just absolutely nuts that one dude took on a feat that large. Early reviews are suggesting that this game is providing around 60 hours of content, which is pretty staggering considering it's a one-man team and it's only priced at $25. So if you are curious to check this one out, it does have a demo that you can download, which covers the first act or so of the story. And from my understanding, the progress will carry on over from the demo to the main game. And one final note that I thought is worth mentioning is I couldn't help but notice lots of cries for this to be in contention the game of the year. It might sound like a bit of a stretch without having played it, but you won't know until you jump in yourself, and it's definitely a game I'll be checking out soon. ASTLIBRA Revision is available exclusively for PC on Steam. Number 3, Cosmoteer, Starship Architect, and Commander. Cosmoteer is a single and multiplayer spaceship building battle simulator developed and published by Alternate Realities. Currently, Cosmoteer sits in early access, but the developer of this game is very passionate and releases regular patchwork, bug fixes, commentaries, and so forth. There is a Cosmoteer demo that you can try before you buy, which as time goes on, I'm really beginning to appreciate these demo offerings more and more. Brings me back to the days of getting a bonus CD with a demo of a few games on it for the Dreamcast. Good old Ready to Rumble 2 demo. Spent more time playing that than Hydro Thunder.
Let's get ready to rumble!
So, Cosmoteer is, as I mentioned, a spaceship building game. The theme is you build spaceships by utilizing a variety of ship parts, resources, and in-game mechanics to create any type of ship your heart desires. Once your ship is completed, you send it off to battle and let the fireworks commence. The game does offer a single-player career mode campaign, which lasts approximately 12 hours. However, think of this as more of a fairly long but extremely solid tutorial, setting you up for the entire Cosmoteer experience. Before the game was even released, players put hundreds of hours in this title, which is a fantastic sign. This game does feature a popular multiplayer option where both online co-op and PvP is available. It also includes different factions that players can align with, affecting space lore and the overall gameplay experience. This is a feature that will continue to expand over the course of development, and as I mentioned earlier, the game is still in early access, but you can view the full developer roadmap via the Cosmoteer website, where you can read up on a plethora of cool additions that are laid out for the game's future. This is definitely one you shouldn't be sleeping on, as I see big things coming throughout its early access phase. You can pick up a copy of Cosmoteer, Starship Architect, and Commander for a low price tag of $20, available exclusively for PC on Steam. At number 2, we have A Plague Tale Requiem, a single-player, story-rich exploration-adventure game that features elements of stealth and action throughout its entirety. This is the sequel to the 2019 release of A Plague Tale Innocence, and same as its predecessor, this one was also developed by Asobo Studio and published by Focus Entertainment. If you aren't familiar with the prequel, Asobo Studio is the same team who spearheaded development of Microsoft Flight Simulator back in 2020, and this is a team that's really starting to show a quality footprint on the industry, and Plague Tale Requiem continues that trend. The setting takes place in 14th century France, following two main protagonists, Amicia and her little brother Hugo, along with their ragtag group of friends that they met in the first installment of the series. The story continues 6 months after the events of A Plague Tale Innocence, as Amicia is now on a mission to clear her brother's blood disease via a rumored magic island in the waters of southern France. Along the way, the two experience expanded character arcs that define their new livelihoods realized at the end of the first game. Compared to Innocence, Requiem experiences an expanded combat and progression system. Unlike the first one, you are now able to kill enemies instead of just stunning them. While different from the first in this element, it sounds like developers took this into consideration and tied it all together with Amicia's story arc. Additionally, with this expansion in the combat system, players are given a playstyle choice where the progression system rewards playstyle decisions. Those who want to take a more stealth-focused route are going to find themselves tracking down a stealth tree, unlocking skills and abilities focused on improving stealth efficiency. And on the flip side of things, players who are focused on a more lethal route moving throughout the game will find the skill tree to reward more combat-focused skills and abilities. Similarly to the last game, there is an emphasis on light-avoidant rats that will kill you if you find yourself in unlit areas, and we also see a continued expansion of Hugo's rat powers from the first game, which I think many already expected, but is a nice core feature that carried over. It is worth disclosing, if you haven't played the first, I think you're doing yourself a real disservice by jumping into A Plague Tale Requiem right away, and if I were you, I'm just gonna wishlist both games, nab them both during the upcoming sales, and playing them back to back. Currently, this one is sitting with a price tag of $50, where you can catch a copy on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, and PC on both Steam and Epic Games. And finally, at number 1, we have the Nintendo Cult Classic series dropping Bayonetta 3. For those unfamiliar, Bayonetta 3 is an action-adventure title developed by Platinum Games and published by Nintendo. This series is historically good, and this game is no exception to that rule. Bayonetta 3 features Bayonetta as the surprise main protagonist once again, as well as supporting cast from prior titles and a new witch in training, Viola. Bayonetta and her allies' journey is dependent on stopping a mysterious man known as Homunculi and preventing the catastrophic Singularity event from taking place. Continuing the tradition of the previous installments, Bayonetta 3 features a hack-and-slash combat system combining both melee combat and gun combat. During fights, players are able to use special abilities and powers that give them advantageous openings, such as Bayonetta's ability to slow down time in order to perform deadly combos, or her ability to take control of summoned demons, leveraging their underworld powers mid-fight. Players new to the genre may find a bit of a learning curve to the combat during the first few hours, but once they get the hang of things, chaining combos and different skills becomes easy to understand, allowing for more ways to play, and results in extremely satisfying combat. So far, it seems that all signals point towards Bayonetta 3 cultivating the best combat system in the series to date. The only thing I can really nitpick with this game is that Nintendo $60 price tag that they love so much, but even then, I don't think that's going to stop me from picking up a copy later this week, if I'm being completely honest. Bayonetta 3 is the best game, by far in my opinion, to come out in October, and I highly recommend snagging this one when you can. I am curious, what game do you think is going to completely kill it in November? Is it going to be another big AAA title, something like God of War, or is it going to be some unknown indie title we have yet to be spoiled by? Comment below, let me know, and until next time, peace out.